right, hi Math 7 students. Today we're going to talk about using a number line to add and subtract. So a number line is a really helpful tool if you don't like to draw those markers, or maybe you don't have colors, or I don't know, it's just another diagram to help us. So this is our number line. They can be horizontal like this one is, or they can be vertical. They can also be vertical. So just be aware of that. But a vertical number line is the same exact thing as a horizontal one, but instead of lying down, it stands up straight. All right, we're going to use a number line to help us add this problem. We have -4 plus 6, and there's a few things we have to remember. The first thing, like it says, is we always start at 0. Always start at 0, okay? And then this first integer tells us how much we're going to move. This says -4, so we're going to move from 0 to -4. Okay, so that's the first thing that tells us, is that we're going to move -4 from 0. Then, from where our arrow left off, we're going to move the second number. So this is where we have to count, okay? So I'm going to go from where my arrow left off, and I'm going to count 6 spaces in the positive direction. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going towards the positive numbers because it's a positive 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with my number line now, after I've moved positive 6, I know what my answer is. In this case, after I moved red and then blue, I ended at positive 2. So this equals positive 2, okay? Now, maybe you don't like the arrows or you can't draw straight lines. That's fine too. You can also use the method of the little hills. So I could have gone 1, 2, 3, 4. And where my arrow stops, I go back 6 the positive direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I knew I was going 6 in the positive direction because of the plus sign in front of the 6, okay? So either way works, but this is the basics of how you use a number line, okay? So this is where we have to make sure we're paying attention. The second integer or the second number with the sign is the most important part because it's going to tell us where to go. So there's 2 different directions we can move. The first direction is to the left. The first direction is to the left, and that's if you see a plus negative or a negative itself. Plus negative or a negative by itself. I move left if I see things like this. I move right in the positive direction if I see plus a number or that double negative. Remember, double negative becomes that positive. So the opposite of -5 is the same thing as +5. That's why rewriting it, like we talked about in class the other day, is very helpful. Okay? So when you see the negatives, we move in the negative direction. When you see positives, we move in the positive direction. Left is negative, right is positive. So let's try a few together, okay? So again, always start at 0. And I'm going to use the arrow method because I have a tool that lets me draw really nicely. So this first number tells me to go -2 from 0. So I start at 0 and I go to -2. Then I read this second number and I have to figure out what it's telling me to do. And this says plus -6. So this is saying plus more negatives. Because it's saying plus more negatives, I need to go even more in the negative direction. So I start where my last arrow left off, and this says to go more in the negative direction. So from here, I'm going to move 6 more spaces to the left because left is negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And where I end up is my answer. So in this case, my answer is -8 because that is where I ended my arrows. Okay? So again, start at 0 first and do your first number. And then you have to figure out what the second number tells you. So I would suggest writing this page down. Pause the video and write this page down or take a picture of it so you can easily compare. Look, plus negative meant move to the left. Minus means move to the left. Plus a positive means move to the right. Minus a negative, which is the same thing as a positive because we talked about that last class, moves us to the right. So maybe take a picture of this page. So let's do another example. I first need to figure out what this first number tells me. There's no sign in front of it, which means it must be positive. So I know that I need to start at 0 and move 4 in the positive direction. Then I look at my second number and I figure out what is it telling me. This says 7 in the negative direction. So this says 7 left. So I need to take my arrow from where I last left off, which is right on the 4, and move 7 to the left. So I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And where I left off is my answer. So the answer to this problem is -3. Notice I'm not doing any math. I'm not making any zero pairs. I'm just using this picture to tell me the answer. All right, let's do another one. Again, use this first number to tell you what you have to do first. I start at 0, and this says to go 2 in the negative direction. Negative is left, so I have to move 2 to the left. All right, then I look at this second number, including the sign. So I have to include this guy over here. Now, this is where it's a little crazy. Does Miss Satry like this double negative? No. So either you remember we can rewrite this problem as +1, or you're going to struggle, okay? So because it's +1, I take my arrow from where I left off and I move 1 in the positive direction. And where I end up is my final answer. So in this case, my answer is -1. So one hint for this problem is you might want to rewrite it before you start your number line. That way you're not confusing yourself. Again, a hint I can give you is you might want to rewrite the problem before you start your number line. We can also write an equation based on the number line. Okay? So remember, the first number is when I moved from 0. So in this case, my first number is the amount of spaces I moved from 0. So I went from 0 all the way to -7. So that must mean my first number is -7. Then it's probably easiest to use a plus sign. Whether it's positive or negative, it's probably easiest to use a plus sign. Always probably going to be easiest to make this just an addition problem. And then I figure out, what did my next arrow tell me to do? Well, it told me to move 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the right. Right is a positive direction, so that must mean that I moved 4 spaces in the positive direction. This was 4 spaces in the positive direction, so that's why the second number is +4. And then we know where the equation equaled because of this. Because of where my last arrow left off, I know what the equation equals. So here's another example. I want you to try to come up with the equation on your own. All right, if you got that the first number should have been minus 2 because I went from 0 to negative 2. And then, like I said, that plus sign's probably going to be the easiest. And then I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more in that negative direction. You could have this equation, or maybe you don't like the plus sign. Your equation could have been negative 2 and negative 7. You went negative 2 and negative 7 more. Either of them is correct, but this first one is probably the easiest for us to figure out. All right, here's another one. Go ahead and tell me the equation for this guy. Good, you should have gotten positive 6. And then plus, and this is where we have to be careful, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 in the negative direction. It's not just 5 in the negative direction. You have to go from where your last arrow left off all the way to where it ends. So start at that second arrow and go all the way to where it ends to figure out that second number. I want you to match the equation to the correct graph. So you're going to see the questions right now are going to kind of pop up. Make sure you hit next, do all 4, and then I'll compare the answers with you. All right, so there's the answers. Hopefully you got them right. If you didn't, we'll do some more practice in class tomorrow, but this is how you use number lines to help you add and subtract. Hopefully it's a little easier. I like them because I can actually draw a number line quickly and I don't have to think too much about the math involved, especially about zero pairs. But this is just another tool you can use. So if you liked the rules themselves, if you like the pictures with the yellow and the red, then go ahead and use those. But this is just another tool you can use, and I will see you in class.